Hey everybody, welcome back. I am the Constant Way, and today we're going to be talking about the gods of Judgement Eternal Champions. Specifically, we're going to be going down through a breakdown of what their playstyle is, sort of their strengths, maybe some weaknesses, where their power lies in terms of the blessings that they grant, how effective are the champions in their champion pool for doing what you want to do, warband bonus, sacred artifact, effigy power, and avatar bonus. Finally, we'll do some sample warbands that you can build either just straight up as blind pick out of the box, if you buy an add-on pack for that particular god, and an alternative variant warband that might get you thinking about some things slightly outside the box still for that god. So we'll go through in alphabetical order and start off with my personal favorite, Bruelin. Bruelin is all about aggression and relentless onslaught, melee energy. Its champions are all about getting up in your opponent's face, smashing them into the dirt, collecting souls. To that end, their champion pool and the ones you have to choose from, fantastic. All of your strongest melee aggressors are here, and the non-damage dealers that are also included in the Bruelin Warband all work really well to support that smash face playstyle. The warband bonus is a solid good, I would say. Having Pathfinder on the charge, especially in relationship to your effigy power where you get to charge for one less action, is pretty important. You don't get gummed up on walls and forests and so on. The Sacred Artifact, it's alright. One of the perks, for example, with Zonia is she doesn't necessarily need some of the typical offensive artifacts like a Vorpal Blade or an Armor Shredder, things like that, to do her job. So it's not a terrible thing to have Second Wind, which gives you an extra AP the first time you kill an enemy model. Not too bad. The effigy power, of course, is where Bruelin's big flashy power comes from, and that reduces the cost of a charge if it's your first action by 1 AP. That means that most of the time on the Bruelin power, you're getting 3 or potentially even 4 if you've got Bloodlust attacks with those big heavy hitters that are champions of Bruelin. That's fantastic. You're going to wipe your opponent off the board if they're in range. So really great to take advantage of that. The Avatar bonus helps support that. It gives Zonia the ability to re-roll a basic attack roll once per activation. That's great. Zonia really does love getting her crits and making sure she gets those Fury tokens stacked up. So this is giving you just a little bit more reliability on making that happen. So a solid good there. If we're looking at some sample warbands for Bruelin, it's hard to go wrong with your 3 orcs here for blind pick. You've got Zonia the Avatar. She can hit high defense or high agility targets, no problem. She can crack armor, no problem. She's going to kill whatever you point her at. You've got Skull for some good old meatball potential. His Bulwark is a great defense for Zonia, and he gets some very interesting and powerful abilities as he levels up. Finally, you've got Krul, who is cream of the crop right now. Very dominant Soul Gazer, has the ability to dominate a single soul pit with his level 2. He can strip souls off of enemies, and is right now big money maker is Bloodlust, where he makes your friendly heroes' actions 1 AP cheaper when they are attacking. So he essentially transfers one of his actions to one of your big damage dealers to give you more burst potential, which is really solid. So consider that as a very typical sort of 3 that you might want to run in a Bruelin list. Then if you pick up the Bruelin add-on pack, you can expand out into a full pick and ban 5s list. In this case, I would recommend adding in Brock and Kogan and Marcus from the core box, as well as Barnascus from the add-on pack. What essentially this does is it gives you a more sturdy front line. In addition to just the high health pool that you're bringing with Skull, you've got Marcus and Barnascus who are bringing an element of res into it, so you've got some armor. And then those last 3, Kogan, Marcus, and Barnascus, all have knockdown abilities, which Zonia doesn't have too much trouble hitting, but Skull sure appreciates the added bonus to hit knockdown opponents, as does Brock and Kogan. They can really crank out a lot of damage if they get to roll their crits and maneuvers. So Marcus and Barnascus, very helpful. Additionally, Barnascus and Kogan give you a bit more diversity in your charge forward smash face plan, where both Kogan and Barnascus have guns that can be used to great effect, particularly against knockdown targets, and even for the effigy assassination on the effigy power turn. You'll note that you cannot charge the enemy effigy or target the enemy effigy with melee attacks during the effigy power, but you certainly could charge a nearby hero and then push off of them and shoot into the effigy with Kogan or Bernascus. So nice little surprise effigy assassination angle if your opponent's not watching out for it. For a variant, this is actually the warband I like to play when I play Bruelin. It's called Get Over Here, and it's trying to shore up the weakness that a lot of the times when you pop your effigy power, since it has to be used on your first action of a hero's activation, your opponent might just back up, and suddenly no one's in charge range, and you've wasted your effigy power. Arya helps fix that with her Allure ability, bringing clutch targets close to you to get into your charge range, Zonia and Thorgar, or the shooting range of Kogan, for example. While Gendris increases your own threat range with her Find a Path ability, as well as providing great gang ups with her 2-hex reach. Got a standard selection of melee beaters here in Zonia, Thorgar, and Kogan that are all very strong. Well, Zonia and Thorgar are melee beaters. Kogan's got, I would argue, one of the best guns in the game. And Lugdrug gives you some fun utility in terms of pushes and general protection. He also gives you some utility in fire for anti-healing, which is always welcome and is in general just an all-around good hero. Krul's in there because Krul's great. He's also probably going to get banned and never see the table, so try not to worry too much about it, but if your opponent does let you play him, then you'll get to use him to great effect here. Moving right along to G, Grul. Grul is the rock. Control the earth, weather the storm. You've got a great list of champions. The champions in Grul all work well with each other. In particular, I would say they almost all work specifically to enhance your big Soul Gazer there, Zyvera. And you've got big health pools, a lot of Minotaurs to play with those abilities. And Grul is all about sort of this grindy, steady, controlled game where if you've got enough health, you've got that regen ability on your Minotaurs, it's going to be real tough for your opponent unless they've got great burst to take you down. So great selection of champions within Grul. It's unfortunately a little limited in the Kickstarter. I think there's a total of 7 that are released or that are available on release with the Kickstarter, but those 7 are quite strong. The Warband bonus, unfortunately, there's a lot of text there. It helps you not get pushed if you're within Forest Rough Treacherous Ground, and if you start your activation in Forest Rough Treacherous Ground, you heal 1, and you also don't suffer from Treacherous Ground. Unfortunately, the terrain, especially on some of the intro maps in the rulebook, is not that central or relevant, so this one doesn't actually come up a lot, despite the large amount of text there. So, it's okay. Maybe more of an realistically. However, moving right along with that Sacred Artifact, bearer gains +1 reach on its melee attacks. This is great. It might not be as, I guess, flashy as, say, like the Ista's Healing Surge or Torin's Health Swap artifact, or even just the Diamond Armor from Tomas where you're getting +1 res, but +1 reach on melee attacks is a really big deal, especially if you can combine it with other 2-reach heroes, like Gendris, for example. When you start stacking up those crowd outs and gang up bonuses, that can go a long way to making sure that you're rolling a whole bunch of dice and your opponent is rolling very few. Of special note, Thorgar in particular benefits from Staff of Grul because of his level 2 Man-Catcher ability, where he can pull a hero towards him from 3 hexes away. If he's got the Staff of Grul, he doesn't actually have to bring those heroes fully base to base when he uses Mancatcher, adjacent to him when he uses Mancatcher. He can just wail on them from a couple hexes away, which is incredibly powerful and means you're almost always going to get 3 full attacks with Thorgar, who can roll lots of dice and deal lots of damage. So really, really great Sacred Artifact in the Staff of Grul. The FG power, it's okay, it's solid. It plays into the Grul game plan of here's some health and don't get pushed around. Again, that sort of slow, steady grind, and it also gives you some more health to play with in regards to, say, Zyvera's abilities, where she likes to trade her own health for benefits across your warband or attacking your enemies. So it's solidly okay, I would say. And then the avatar bonus is hot fire. Well, not quite hot fire, but hot lightning. Gendris's lightning leap becomes 1s instead of 2s, which is quite frankly phenomenal because Gendris, she's got a magic 7 attack and it's just a 2, 3, 4 damage track, which is standard. However, that lightning leap duplicates whatever damage you dealt to the original target as true damage on a nearby enemy model. That means you could shoot, say, a knockdown, say, squishy target, deal 4 damage to them, and then lightning leap over to the nearby Donregar or Marcus for another 4 damage, ignoring their res. So this can quickly get out of hand, and Gendris could do 8 damage a shot if she crits and gets a lightning leap. That's just 1 action. 2 actions gives you 16. Think about it. Pretty good. So yeah, avatar bonus is great. You additionally, models get Pathfinder if they start within 2x's of Gendris. It's useful. It's not great. The lightning leap's really where the money's at. So if you're looking to do your warbands, good representative ones here in 3s would be Gendris, Thorgar, and Donregar. This gives you your 3 Minotaur meat wall. Donregar is going to be real hard to take down. Thorgar is going to be your big bruiser, and Gendris gives you that avatar bonus and, in general, utility that you can use to deathball your way to victory. The 5's core plus the Grul expansion pack builds on this. What you're doing here now is adding in Kogan, Piper, Zyvera, and Skull. This gives you more Minotaur health in Kogan and another damage threat there. It's a uniquely ranged damage threat, so it gives you some varied threat in that regard. Piper is just a great all-around utility hero. He can go up to Soul Harvest 5 with Enhanced Self, so in case Zyvera gets banned away from you, you still have a decent option for someone to Soul Gaze. And he can dish out a good amount of damage with his backstab. He's got control and mage hand and taunt, and can become fairly durable himself thanks to, again, Enhanced Self and also Duplicate Self, making him a real problem to get rid of. Zyvera is a sneaky MVP in the warband here. She's kind of complicated at first glance and maybe not as potent as it might be, as you might think for some of the more obvious or straightforward heroes and soul gazers. But let me tell you, Zyvera is an absolute rock star. Her ability to just deal true damage with no dice rolled, heal up your other heroes, just again, no dice rolled from a little bit of a distance. And in a warband that has a whole lot of health pools, regen, healing to play with, she really gets to do whatever she wants. Bonus points if you get her to get her levels. Her level 2 is great for stymieing some of those important combat maneuvers and again having enemies push you out of position, since it adds an additional S to the cost of any combat maneuver. And her level 3 is almost game over, where she gets to link the health pools of 2 friendly heroes. So you tie somebody to Donregar or say Skull, and they now have an additional 20 health points to get through. They're not going down. Finally, she also has the ability to Soul Harvest, the unique ability right now to Soul Harvest twice in 1 activation, thanks to a normal Soul Harvest for 2 actions, and then using her Unholy Harvest ability to harvest a second time. This can be a quick double tap to get 2 souls and win you the game when your opponent might not be expecting it. Finally, Skull's in here again to double down on this big meatball theme. He also hands out Bulwark so that Zyvera can play around with even more health to play with. And if you put Bulwark and Duplicate Self on Piper, you have essentially eliminated 2 attacks that Piper's going to take, making it highly unlikely that he's going to be in any danger whatsoever. So Skull's a great addition to some specific synergies in this warband, as well as the general theme of bringing a lot of health. Good luck getting through it. Our variant here is a little bit more focused on the control aspects of Grul. We're still bringing Gendris. We're still bringing Thorgar. He's leaning into the control aspects via Mancatcher and his Hurl abilities. Drelgoth also. He's got a lot of attacks that can generate a lot of pushes, and so you can move around your opponents into advantageous positions for you. We're also bringing Marcus here. He's got his knockdown and his wall and his level 2, so you can really, again, control movement, control the areas of the board where your opponent can go and how far they can go. We're bringing Zarin here for our Soul Gazer because via his skeletons, he can start popping out these skeletons. And again, they have the ability to take up board space, to take up hexes. You can jam them into your opponent and put them in uncomfortable places so that if they kill the skeleton when Zarin's level 2, they blow up and the opponent takes damage because of it. Great control elements there. Piper again with his mage hand, with duplicate self, with taunt. He's got a lot of control he's bringing there. And Arya, like we mentioned in Bruelin, with her allure ability, as well as her symphonic gun with knockdowns and stuns. So you're really trying to lock down your opponent, control areas of the board, and use that to grind your way to victory. Next up is Ista. Never say die and strike true. So Ista is sort of, in a word, a paladin. In fact, her champion, Isabel, is I think the closest thing we've got to a paladin in Judgement. Her general plan is to have a fairly durable warband that has a whole lot of healing, and then you can use her effigy power to precisely go where you need to go, attack who you need to attack with nimble and flight, or back off and make sure that you don't get killed off or your vulnerable heroes don't get killed off. So her champions is a solidly good selection of champions. There's a little bit of a weakness right now in her Kickstarter only champion pool because Brock is really your only big melee beater champion. So you can be a little bit vulnerable to a ban there. Warband bonus is very good. Heroes resurrect adjacent to the effigy at full health. Heroes are gonna die over the course of the game, and when they resurrect on full health, that means that they're not vulnerable to somebody just rediving them again and killing them off again immediately right after they respawn. So very good, solid warband bonus to have. Her sacred artifact, the restoration potion, is absolutely fantastic. It's phenomenal. It fully heals a warband just like the healing surge standard. Sorry, not your warband, a hero in your warband. Just like the healing surge magical artifact. Only it costs no fate to purchase, and it only takes one action. This is an artifact that every single first turn of the game, you should have one of your heroes purchase, just right out the gate, so that you always have that in your pocket to just full heal one of your heroes. It synergizes particularly well with Brock, again, for example, who on his level 2 doesn't die the first time he gets killed, he instead goes back up to 1 health. If that lets you get somebody on your next activation to him with that restoration potion, bloop, he's back up to full, and all your opponent's hard work has been undone. So really powerful sacred artifact. The effigy power, it's okay. It lets you reposition without fear of parting blows, and it gives you nimble, so that when you charge, or sorry, it gives you fly, so that when you charge, you can fly over intervening models and objects and so on, which is good for sort of focus fire on squishy backline targets, or even the effigy. So solid effigy power. It's okay. The avatar bonus, I would say, it's also okay. It gives Isabel a little bit more maneuverability, a little bit more flexibility, but it's not gonna, blow your mind like potentially some of the other avatar bonuses. So looking at warbands for Ista, you've got Three's blind pick with Isabel, Brock, and Marcus. This is going to be, again, a fairly meaty front line. You've got a fair amount of res with Marcus and Isabel. Marcus is bringing 2 naturally. You can protective stance another hero for another +1 res. Isabel has the 1 naturally, so she'd go up to a 4-2 defensive stat line. Brock can savagery to get a res, and then he becomes 3-2 for a defensive stat line. So you're bringing the meat, you're going to buy the potion, you're going to smash your way through things. Isabel can heal things, Marcus can prevent damage, and Brock can make sure things get killed. So solid 3 to start with. Adding on to the core, since Ista doesn't have her own god add-on pack, I'd recommend buying the Torin add-on pack if you want to focus on Ista. This will get you Thrummel and Istariel to drop in to your warband. This is giving you Thrommel, who's a phenomenal bruiser and tank. He does a lot of damage with that big Warhammer of his. He's got a huge health pool, so that the Restoration Potion really has a lot of value if he's the one carrying it around and potentially even using it on himself. Main thing you have to watch out for there is he's got stubby legs, so he might not be able to get in there and rescue someone who's in need of a heal, and also his attack is 2 actions. So if you're spending 1 to move, 1 to heal, he then has 1 action with which he can't attack. He has to do something like move again or fierce challenge. So not the greatest, but he definitely has a big health pool, and he definitely packs a wallop. So Thrommel's always worth bringing in his warband. Alandir and Istariel shore up your damage so that in case Brock gets banned, you still have some good armor shredding in Istariel and some great all-around damage threat in Alandir. And then finally, we're bringing in Saiyan for your Soul Gazer. She also has a sneaky way of cranking up the damage, especially late game when your opponent has a couple souls on them. She gets +1 damage on her little short-range Soul Blast ability for every soul your target is carrying. That's a sneaky way to surprise your opponent and knock out their most valuable model, the one carrying all their souls, as well as having some additional healing and defensive abilities in her Holy Aura, Augury, and Holy Shield abilities. So, in general, a solid inclusion herself. A variant here is focused actually on the effigy power portion of Ista. It's called Dive, and this is all about amping up somebody like Brock or Thorgar. Now, Thorgar doesn't benefit from the effigy power, but he can tend to go where he needs to, and amping up that hero so that they can dive in and make sure that they get delivered to the most important target possible. Donnergar is in there as well because he has a 2-3-5 damage track, so that if he gets to dive onto the effigy and land a crit, he's taking 1 full soul's worth of damage off of that effigy, and that can help finish off the game for you if you need to. So that's a fun little variant, a little less emphasis on durability and a little bit more emphasis on offense, but with plenty of good tools to spare. Next up, we've got Krognar, the God of Shadows. His playstyle is all about mobility. You're going to benefit from striking where your opponent's weak and retreating to back where you're safe. His champions are okay. You're getting all the champions that play with Shadow Orbs in Krognar, which is good. It helps out with his Shadow Dance effigy power and gives you synergy there. You might be a little bit light on straight damage, but he's got a lot of little tricks and champions with tricks that help you crank out damage. So Rakir, of course, with his Toxin is a strong burst and very mobile hero. You've got Kane, the demon, who can cut himself or a friend to actually deal a lot more damage with his Blood Pact ability. You've got Kogan, who we've talked about before as damage. You've got Piper, who if he gets his backstab does a good amount of damage. So you've got some options there, but they all come on heroes with a bunch of tricks that you need to be clever to get your most potential out of. So Krognar definitely, I would say, is a bit of a higher skill ceiling god, which can be really rewarding and fun to play if you mastered them. Warband bonus for Krognar. Effigy recall costs 1 action. This is a sneakily amazing effigy power ability, or sorry, warband bonus ability. That means that anybody who is in any sort of danger can use 2 actions to either punch somebody to get a push away, charge in, do an attack, then push back, and then effigy recall for 1 action and be completely safe. You can also say attack to push off of somebody, effigy recall, and then heal yourself back at the effigy, so that you'll be able to get back into combat again. It really allows you to protect your most valuable heroes as they get low on health. So great warband bonus. Honestly, it's sometimes worth running Krognar purely for that warband bonus to make sure that you're hanging on to all your souls and you're denying your opponent kills. The Sacred Artifact, the Umbra Sphere, allows you to create Shadow Orbs, or allows the bearer to create Shadow Orbs. It's okay. It's really all about the synergy and how many other Shadow Orb using heroes you've brought, as well as enabling the Shadow Dance effigy power in case you either didn't bring or got banned all of your other Shadow Orb users. It doesn't do much more than that, and you're already probably bringing a bunch of Shadow Orb users, so it can be a little redundant, especially with the limit of 3 Shadow Orbs on the table at any given time. So The effigy power, good. Again, it's all about movement. It's allowing you to immediately teleport champions to a shadow orb or to your effigy at the start of a round. That again can be great for shifting your focus, your power, your threat projection to various places. You can pull back injured heroes. You can push forward and actually use it offensively to jam into your opponent if you want. You've got some options, but again, its value is really going to depend on how well you can make use of that big movement shift. The avatar bonus, it's okay. It means that Zarin counts as a shadow orb icon, so you can always teleport to him. That gives you a way above this 3 shadow orb limit and gives you yet another place to teleport to. But considering he can already drop shadow orbs himself, it's just okay. Nothing that's really going to blow your mind. Looking at the warbands for Krognar, might as well start with our shadow orb users in Rakir and Zarin and bring in a little bit of beef in Skull. Not much more to say about that one. Rakir does your damage and teleports around. Skull does your soul gazing and can later on teleport around and use his skeletons to control the board. And Skull gets to be your sort of midline meatwad who goes where he needs to, protects what he needs to, puts bulwarks on things as he needs to, and is an all-around generalist. Looking at expanding up to 5v5 to a group of 7 heroes. Again, since Krognar is one of the gods included in the core box, you're going to expand with a different add-on pack. In this case, I'm going to recommend the Demon 1 add-on pack. This gets you Kane and Lugdrug, who are a great sort of utilitarian damage dealer in Kane, and an all-around sturdy and utility tank type hero in Lugdrug. This gives you all the shenanigans with Rakir, Zarin, and Piper for lots of movement and teleportation. You've got a very sturdy front line in Skull, Lugdrug, and Piper. And finally, backing up your Rakir damage with the gun of Kogan and the blood pact potential of Kane to really dish out some pain. Finally, for our variant, you might think that Krognar has to play sort of this slippery game because they are a glass cannon. That's not necessarily true. In this case, we're pivoting into being a lot more durable. We're bringing Cradle, who can generate Shadow Mist tokens and then use them to heal friendly opponents, or friendly heroes. Don't heal your opponent, friends. And we're bringing in Fazil, who can, at level 2, start overleeching to get 5 maximum or 5 temporary health above his normal maximum, and also synergizes well with Rakir as a source of poison, and vice versa. We're also bringing in our meaty frontline, like I mentioned, in Lugdrug and Skull, as well as Piper, and finally bringing in Nias, who is a demon soulgazer with agility 5, a healing ability, and an AoE poison melee attack, which again synergizes more with Rakir and Fazil, both in terms of setting up for toxins and pestilences, but also to reduce your opponent's melee, range, and magic stat lines so that you are even more durable. So you can switch over to a very durable playstyle and use your repositioning abilities to make sure that none of your heroes are ever caught where they shouldn't be or without help or support. That's Krognar. We'll move on to Tomas. Tomas is all about bide and burst. Bide your time, wait for the time is right, and then bam, pop your refugee power, do a bunch of really potent maneuvers, and wipe the floor with your opponent. So the champions in Tomas, great selection. Really don't need to look too much out of the champion list to build a very solid warband. These are a list of heroes that all have very potent combat maneuver abilities to take advantage of the FG power, as well as decent internal synergies to have this sort of tanky but dangerous warband. The warband bonus itself is a little interesting. It's a model heals D3 plus 2 health whenever it kills an enemy hero. Now, hopefully you're going to kill 4 or 5 heroes over the course of the game, so that kind of healing can certainly add up. The reason it's to me is a lot of the times when your model kills an enemy, they're already at full health. So in that case, you don't benefit. And actually, the biggest reason I call this is I always forget to use it. Uh, you get excited, you get the kill, you're like, all right, I get the soul, this is great, and you just forget about the warband bonus. I'd honestly, like, if you're playing right in Sharpie on your hand, like warband bonus, so that you don't forget. Sure, you heal your dudes. Sacred Artifact Diamond Armor is res with sort of an anti-armor shredder ability built into it. Perfectly solid. Heroes like, again, Fazil, we mentioned, can get pretty tanky. So you give him the Diamond Armor, he gets a lot more tanky, especially if Marcus is around to give him protective stance. Um, it could go on to a hero like Masuzi to make him Agi 3 Res 2 without Armor Shred. Um, but for the um, V1 or the Kickstarter heroes, not too many other targets that want the sacred artifact there, so it's just a good, I would say, on the right heroes. The effigy power, like we mentioned, is great. It's fantastic. It means that the combat maneuver cost of all friendly champion Tomas heroes becomes 1s. Now you still have to spend fate in case there's a fate cost associated with it, like Azil's decapitation, for example. But the fact that any of those 2S or even 1J, 1S combat maneuvers become 1S, oof, it gets real scary. Now, it is important to call out that if the combat maneuver itself says 2S for the cost, but then if you roll a J, you get this additional effect, that makes the base cost, if it's on the FG power turn, the base cost becomes 1S instead of 2S, but to get the benefit of the if you roll a J, you still have to roll that J. So that's relevant, like for Ashel, for example, Ashel's Bombard. Still need to roll that J, but it means you don't need as many S's, which is great. Additionally, an interaction to note with this is that the FG power changes the base cost, the symbol cost of the combat maneuvers to 1S. So if there's any other ability that then modifies the cost, that is applied after the effigy power, like for example, Zyvera's level 2. Finally, the Avatar bonus, giving Fazil +1 move and mail when resolving a charge action. Hey, we like our mobile missile on Fazil. It's good. It extends his threat range. We like that. The only thing you have to watch out for is overextending him and getting him killed. So do be mindful of that and don't get too carried away. When we're looking at our warbands for Tomas, we're really going to focus to start on this poison and damage threat combo. So Fazil and Rakir are your two melee best buddies. Again, like we talked about in that Krognar warband, they can pair off each other or set each other up with poison or toxin and pestilence. And we're bringing in Marcus to shore up, give you some board presence, grant protective stance over to Fazil to make him an unkillable menace, and do knockdown to get landing those combat maneuvers even easier on turns where it isn't the FG power turn. Moving up to the 5 versus 5 with our 7 heroes, we're including again Fazil, Rakir, and Marcus, but now we're adding in some more beef with Skull and Sky, along with some potent ranged damage in Zimgugrak, Ice Lich, and bringing in our soul gazing capabilities with Zarin. Now, you might wonder, well, wait a minute, why did we bring 3 really beefy tanky heroes? It's because we've actually brought 2 undead. And when undead get a kill, they don't collect the soul. The soul goes on to the nearest friendly model. And so if that goes on to a particularly squishy target or squishy friendly hero, that can be a bummer when your opponent just goes and kills them. So we're making sure that our 2 undead killers are funneling the souls they collect to safe places that are either very sturdy in Marcus, Skull, and Sky, or can get out of dodge like Rakir or Zarin at level 3. Additionally, if Zarin has a soul on him, he gets to summon skeletons for free, or at least for no fate, so that can be a big perk. Zarin also tees up Rakir with Shadow Orbs, so that's why we've brought him here, as well as granting or being able to hand out the ability of Leech 2 with his Gift of Life ability to keep your warband healthy and topped off all throughout the game. Our variant here leans into this sort of blood for blood trade health manipulation abilities. and the warband bonus especially. You've got a number of heroes that can hurt themselves, for example, Zyvera and Kain, or hurt friendly models to gain benefits, while we're bringing a whole bunch of healing in the Leech of Azil, the regeneration of Thorgar, Leech of Zimbigrak, the bonus health of Skull, and the healing of Sky, to make sure that your heroes, even though you're spending some health to get some offensive output, you're also going to stay topped off and healthy. You get to have a fun new resource, your own health, to play with there and make the most of. Finally, we are at Torin. Torin's a tricky one. Playstyle, share the pain. Tends to lean heavy into fragile ranged heroes for dealing damage, and additionally become even more fragile with the effigy power that deals damage to yourself in order to deal more damage to your opponent, while keeping a sturdy front line with heroes like Thrommel, Kura, or Sky, for example. The champion selection for Torin is an for one big reason. No melee damage dealers, no real big melee damage dealers are champions of Torin. That means your Brocks, your Thorgars, your Drelgoths, all those big melee beaters, not going to benefit from Torin's FG power or their sacred artifact. So you've got a bit of a gap you have to plan around for there, but usually can. It's usually worth it. The Warband bonus for Torin is great. Similar to Ista, heroes are going to die over the course of the game, and resurrecting with all of your action points at an effigy means that they can either choose to heal themselves and go back up to full, just like we talked about with Ista, or they can immediately get back into the fight, maybe pick off an enemy hero, or at least get back into a position to be relevant and a threat immediately, whereas in other warbands, a resurrected hero kind of takes the turn off just getting back into position. So great warband bonus for Torin. The Equality Stone is a sacred artifact. It's a free item that you can pay an action and a fate to swap the current base health of the model carrying it with the one with a model, an enemy model adjacent to them. This is particularly threatening if you know it's on a model that your opponent's really not going to kill in one activation. And so you can say, well, you can either ignore me completely because I can always just swap my health for yours, or you really have to gamble and hope that you can kill me in one shot. Otherwise, I'm going to undo all your work and take it, deal it out back to you. So really powerful sacred artifact. Again, one of those that you should always buy on a hero turn one as they're leaving the effigy to make sure that that tool is in your arsenal from the get-go. The effigy power on Torin is great. Twice during an activation for 2 different attacks. You can choose to deal true damage to yourself to get +2 damage on the basic attack. This is, like I mentioned, particularly relevant for these ranged heroes who are already fairly back and fairly safe. Hopefully you've got a good meaty front line in between them and you, so that it's not too terrible for them to cut themselves. And maybe you've got some healers like Bastion, for example, that can help top them back up after they've cut themselves while you burst down an opponent and blunt their retaliation against you. Finally, the Avatar bonus, Bastion's Prayer of Health ability. Its fate cost is removed, so he can always, just for one action, no fate cost, start healing up your friendlies. Again, like I mentioned, super relevant for the FG power, super relevant for keeping your front line well intact. All around, this can add up over the course of a game. If there's 3 turns that he gets to use this, that's potentially 15 plus health that he's getting to heal out over the course of the game for just the cost of action. So very solid Avatar bonus there for you. If we're looking at our warbands, 3's blind pick to give you an idea of what Torin's all about. We start with Bastion himself. He's a general enhancer, giving his heroic ballad +1 on attack rolls to nearby heroes. Really can turn on Astariel, who loves as many dice as she can get to roll a bunch of crits and maneuvers to light things on fire, or Thrommel to really make sure that he lands those big hammer hits and makes his 2A actions count, or 2A attacks with that hammer count, as well as being able to heal up your beefy front line there. And Astariel gets to stay nimble and stay out of dodge with her Blaze ability. Going to be a little bit weak in terms of front line, but or sorry, in terms of melee damage and being able to deal with monsters, but you're playing Torin, you should probably get used to that. Moving up to 5 versus 5, we've added in the Torin add-on box, so we're sticking with Bastion, Astariel, and Thrommel, but we've added in Alandir as another ranged damage threat that can take advantage of I4 and I. We've added in Brock to serve as our melee frontline beater, even though he's not a champion of Torin. He can help you deal with monsters, or if he gets banned, that's okay. You've got Skye and Piper, who are also quite comfortable on the front lines and pretty decent about manipulating monsters or even just tanking them, so that you don't have to deal with them, push them over your opponent, and stay nimble and agile. Finally, for our variant warband, if you're really in love with the creature caster demons and want to just run a whole pile of demons, there's few better gods to do it in than Torin. Torin has a whole bunch of champions that are demons, and so we're bringing Ashel, we're bringing Drogoth for our melee beater, we're bringing Ankura for our meaty frontline, supplemented with Marcus, who's our only non-demon here. Susie and Nias were doubling up on Soul Gazers because both of them have utility outside of just soul gazing. Masuzi via debuffs, Nias via support, melee, and buffing. And then Kane, another big damage dealer who can flex a little bit between melee and ranged and support capabilities to make things sing. This gives you the opportunity to really play with the demonic gateway and coalesce abilities that demons have, where when one demon dies, another one can take their place with sort of a teleport action, or that demon itself can respawn back at its own coalesce token to get back in the action sooner. So some fun options there with the Demon Ball variant. It's a lot of fun to play with, so give it a shot if you'd like. With that, we've reached the end of our overview. Now we've got double diorama. I hope that's been helpful. Feel free to experiment around with the gods and hop into the Judgement Discord if you want to get down to some more dojo and talk about your take on the gods, their benefits, and the kind of warbands that make them sing. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.